This episode is brought to you by Cologuard. Do you know what's really scary? Not screening for colon cancer when you turn 45. The Cologuard test is non-invasive, requires no special prep or time off work, and ships right to your door. In just 3 simple steps, Cologuard takes the scare out of colon cancer screening. If you're 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about the Cologuard test. Cologuard is available by prescription only. Learn more or request a prescription today at Cologuard.com/screen.
Excuse me! Taxi!
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Everybody talking about the crash at LaGuardia. The airport has finally opened just a few hours ago, thank goodness. But what a terrible accident that happened there between the Air Canada plane and also the fire truck. So far, we've heard 2 deaths, the 2 pilots. And John, that nose was like totally scrunched. You could see on the plane. It's horrific. So what went wrong? Joining us now is John Goglia. He is a former NTSB board member. He's also the host of Flight Safety Detectives. John, what do you think happened? There's so many things, and you hear that air traffic control tape. We played it earlier in the show where he's telling, the driver, stop, and then says, oh, I messed up. What do you think happened?
Well, certainly, I think he was speaking the truth. I think he lost sight of what was going on for 1 second. It got away from him. Now, I understand that he was doing 2 jobs in the cockpit. He was taking care of airplanes that were landing as well as moving the ground control, moving equipment on the airport. But there's a lot of mitigating circumstances that we have to wait until they shake out. One of the mitigating problems was a United Airlines airplane aborted a takeoff on that very runway. It was off on the end of it because they had a problem, smoke in the airplane, which might have indicated a fire. That's why he aborted his takeoff. So he was out there waiting for emergency services. That fire truck was one of the multiple emergency service vehicles that were on his way out there to help the United airplane. So that's number one. If the story is true that this guy was in the cockpit working 2 positions because they were short-handed, well, then that makes this accident almost a mirror image of the accident in Washington, which gets me all riled up because what has the FAA learned about that? Why, if it's true, why are we repeating it? Is the FAA got their head up there in the clouds?
Yeah, I mean, you would imagine if there's ever going to be a place to put funds, it's an air safety. By the way, I heard Secretary Duffy say, John, a little bit ago that the reports that there was 1 guy in the tower is not correct, but he didn't say that there might have been a shortage. He just kind of was trying to make it sound like there might have been more than 1, but who knows if maybe it was still only one doing the controls. And well, it's shocking.
You know what? First off, they could have had an army in the tower. If they weren't a trained controller, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
All right. So he dodged that question.
Yep.
Once you learn Washington speak, you can pick out the coyness of what they say. So
how do you investigate this? How do you investigate this? Walk us through what things will be. I mean, clearly human error will be something that's looked at big time.
Well, they're going to look at all the people issues. So I'll guarantee you right now they've had a team of people interviewing everybody that they can find who saw anything and also heard anything because of the broadcast. Right? They have physical people out in the field collecting evidence. Any tire marks, examining the truck, making sure the radio in the truck was still working. Because maybe those guys didn't, maybe the radio failed, maybe the microphone keyed and they was stepped on, so they didn't hear it. There's a lot of things that could have prevented that stop from being heard by those firemen. So they're going to go through everything. I tell people all the time, accident investigation is like a huge checklist. Right? And they come down and they ask the questions. And if they ask you a question, they want to know who, what, when, where, and why. The 5 W's. Right? And you keep asking that question until you can't go any further. And then you move on to something else. So those protocols, those questions have been developed over the last 50 years. They're used not only by the United States, but Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. Those same basic formula is used around the world. If you apply it and do it in detail, you will always come to a good conclusion.
No, great points. Great point. John, I'm so curious on this. We were just talking about this at the beginning. They're calling her the miracle Canadian flight attendant. She was ejected from her plane over 100 meters. This is incredible. And she was found, according to multiple reports, alive in her seat, still strapped into her seat. I mean, how does that happen? That's amazing.
She went right out the cockpit when the cockpit was gone, but the seat probably saved her. It probably took the impact and prevented her from breaking her back or something else. So she's lucky. She's lucky.
That is wow. That's
amazing.
This morning, when I was first on at 5:03 in the morning, and I was the first one to be reporting, I assumed that she got up to welcome the passengers to New York, and when they crashed, she went out the window. But I'm glad she went out with her seat.
Yes. And
does that mean the seat was not fully attached well?
No, that it was ripped out. It was ripped out, I'm told. And the two firemen were also ejected from the fire truck. So, and I understand they just have broken bones, so that's lucky on their part. It's
really lucky. When you see that footage, you see the truck rolling. It looks like that fire truck is rolling.
What killed the pilots? Was it the impact, or was there a fire? What was it?
No fire. It was the impact. They were crushed.
Oh, it's so heartbreaking.
I don't know the weight of that truck, but I'll bet you it could be as much as 300,000 pounds.
And
so when you hit it, right? When you hit it, it's like hitting a brick wall.
An immovable force hits an immovable, unstoppable object.
How fast is it? You got John. This is a question for both Johns. How fast? They said when it's coming in, it's usually going about 100 miles an hour. How much is it going at that point? It's almost right there at impact.
They said 30 miles an hour, but if it was just landing, I think it was a lot more than that.
That's what some people. What do you think, John?
The truck was 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The airplane was closer to 100.
That's what I thought.
Because the accident occurred in the first third of the runway, and typically they're going to use 10 to 15% before they touch down.
Wow.
So he probably only had 1,000 feet to slow down, if that. So it was on taxiway D, which is very close to the beginning.
Well, wow. John Goglia, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for everything you've done for our country. And
keep us posted, John. Thank you. It's really great to have you. Thank you, John.
Okay, bye-bye.